Right now, somewhere in your home, there is a small body of water with one job. It sits inside a curved pipe, tucked behind a wall, beneath a floor. You can't see it, you can't hear it. It needs no power, no maintenance, no attention. It simply sits there, and it blocks something from getting in. What it's blocking is the sewer. Not the water, not the solid waste. The gases, methane, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide, biological compounds, rising constantly from every drain, every pipe, every connection your home has to the city's waste system below. Without that small body of water, those gases would flow freely into your bathroom, your kitchen, your bedroom. Most people couldn't explain how it works. Most people don't even know it has a name. It's called a trap, a water seal. And it is one of the most important pieces of engineering in the history of domestic life. This is not a story about toilets. It's not a story about sewers. It's the story of a hidden border inside every modern home. A border between the world we live in and the world we've built to contain what we can't allow near us. To understand why this matters, you have to go somewhere uncomfortable. Imagine a city of several 100,000 people. No drainage, no sealed plumbing. Waste dumped into alleys, rivers, courtyards, animals and humans sharing the same streets, the same water, the same air. This wasn't some distant ancient horror. This was London in 1800, Paris in 1750, the developed urban world within living memory of people whose grandchildren you might pass in a cemetery today. In these cities, the smell wasn't a background annoyance. It was a physical presence. It entered buildings. It clung to fabric. People carried nosegays, small bundles of flowers and herbs, not as decoration, but as breathing filters, something to hold under the nose when the street became unbearable. The wealthy paid extra to live away from the worst of it. The poor had no such choice, but the smell was not the worst part. The worst part was the belief, widely held and not entirely wrong, that the smell itself was the disease. For most of recorded history, the dominant theory was called miasma, disease spread by bad air, the foul, rotting air that rose from swamps, sewers, and waste heaps. The word malaria literally means bad air in Italian. Miasma theory was wrong about the mechanism. Disease spreads through pathogens, not odor. But the practical advice it led to was often accidentally correct. Avoid the stench, avoid the sewage, avoid the contaminated water, and you did, in fact, avoid cholera. The problem was that in a dense city, you couldn't avoid it, because the city itself made contamination structural. The waste didn't go somewhere safe, it went somewhere nearby, and then it came back. This is where most histories of sanitation go wrong. They blame dirty people, or missing technology, or neglectful rulers. But the real problem was architectural, and no amount of scrubbing could fix it. A farmhouse with an outhouse 50 yards from the back door is a manageable system. A tenement with hundreds of residents sitting above brick tunnels built decades earlier for stormwater, that is a different problem entirely. And that's what happened. As cities grew, they built sewers, but those sewers were built for stormwater, not household waste. They weren't sealed. They ran under the streets and emptied into rivers, often the same rivers that supplied drinking water. Then came indoor plumbing. As plumbing spread through the 19th century, it created a direct physical connection between the inside of a home and the underground sewer network. You now had a pipe connecting your kitchen, your bathroom, your laundry to the massive waste system beneath the city. And that pipe ran in both directions. This is what most people never think about. A pipe doesn't only carry waste away. Unless you do something deliberate to stop it, a pipe will also carry gas back up. The sewer is not inert. It's biologically active, constantly. Decomposing waste produces methane, hydrogen sulfide, other gases. Toxic, and in concentration, explosive. And those gases have nowhere to go except up through the same pipes meant to carry waste down. So here is the situation in a mid-19th century city with new indoor plumbing. You've installed a modern convenience. You've paid for it, you're proud of it. And every night, the sewer breathes back through your pipes and fills your home. People noticed. They complained bitterly. Indoor plumbing, for many families, made things worse, not better. You had moved the cesspit inside the house. This was the crisis that forced an engineering solution. The solution, when it came, was almost offensively simple. Bend the pipe. That's it. That's the entire idea. Instead of running a drain in a straight line to the sewer, you curve it. You create a U-shape. Water flowing through fills that curve and stays there, because water doesn't drain out of a U-bend by gravity. It sits. That small pool of standing water is the barrier. That is the trap. The water blocks the path between the sewer air below and the room air above. Gases cannot pass through liquid. As long as that water sits in the curve, your drain is sealed. Every time you use the sink, fresh water refreshes it. The system maintains itself automatically. No power, no moving parts. It is one of the most elegant engineering ideas in the history of domestic design. The concept goes back further than most people realize. Alexander Cummings' 1775 toilet patent already incorporated a water seal mechanism. But the critical shift came in the mid to late 19th century, when the idea had to be standardized across every drain in every building. Not just under the toilet, under every sink, every bathtub, every floor drain, every single connection between a building and the sewer below. Think about that. You install plumbing in 1870. You fit a trap on your toilet, but your kitchen sink has a straight pipe, and your bathtub, and your laundry. Every one of those open pipes is a channel to the sewer. The house still smells. People are still getting sick, and no one can understand why, because the plumbing looks modern. The full solution required seeing the system as a system. Every point of connection needed a seal, not just the obvious one. That insight made the difference. Knowing the right answer is not the same as using it. There's a cleaner version of this story where someone discovers the water trap and cities immediately retrofit every building. That's not what happened. What happened was slower, messier, and far more human. The first obstacle was cost. Retrofitting existing buildings was expensive. Cities were growing faster than infrastructure could follow. Landlords had no financial incentive to improve conditions for tenants who had nowhere else to go. The second obstacle was the science itself. Miasma theory and germ theory were in open competition through much of the 19th century. John Snow proved cholera was waterborne in London in the 1850s, a landmark moment, but miasma theory didn't collapse overnight. These debates ran for decades, and the third obstacle was technical. Traps work, but they can also fail. A trap that dries out loses its seal. In a building with many connected drains, pressure changes in the system can actually siphon the water out of a trap, reopening the path to sewer gas. This problem, called trap siphonage, required another layer of engineering. A vent pipe, a separate pipe that lets sewer gas escape through the roof, while also balancing the air pressure that might otherwise pull water out of the traps. So, the full system, trap plus vent, took decades to standardize. Every city had different codes, every generation of buildings had different problems, and builders were always looking to cut costs on something no homeowner could see. This pattern, a good solution, slowly and unevenly adopted, is not unique to plumbing. It's the normal story of infrastructure. The gap between knowing what works and actually building it everywhere, for everyone, that's where most of the real difficulty lives. The effects of sealed, trapped, vented indoor plumbing were enormous, and almost all of them happened invisibly. The most direct effect was public health. Cholera epidemics, which had swept through European and American cities with terrifying regularity, became dramatically less common as water supply and drainage improved. Typhoid mortality fell, gastrointestinal illness declined, but the effects went further than disease statistics. Reliable indoor plumbing changed the architecture of the home. Rooms could now be arranged around a private, enclosed sanitary space. The bathroom became a room with a door, with privacy, with the expectation that bodily functions were personal, contained, invisible to everyone else. This shift is easy to underestimate. In older arrangements, sanitation was communal. Outhouses were shared. Chamber pots were emptied in courtyards. Sealed indoor plumbing created a kind of bodily privacy that had previously existed only for the very wealthy. The sealed home also changed urban density. Once you could reliably keep the sewer out of a building, you could build taller, pack more people into a given space, and still maintain habitability. The modern apartment building depends entirely on that assumption. Pull that assumption out, and a 20-story apartment building becomes something else, a vertical transmission system for whatever pathogens are circulating below. And then there's the matter of expectation. Within a generation of widespread plumbing improvement, the standard for an acceptable home changed permanently. People began to expect odorlessness, that clean, blank absence of smell we now take as the default condition. When a drain smells, you call someone, you complain, you feel something has gone wrong. That feeling, the sense that a bathroom odor is a malfunction, is itself a historical achievement. The standard has been set high enough that failure is obvious. Go look at the pipe under your sink if you can. You'll see a curve. A bend that goes down, turns back up, then goes down again toward the wall. That is your trap. It's almost certainly filled right now with a small amount of water that's been sitting there since the last time you used the tap. That water is your barrier. It is the least impressive object in your home. A bent piece of plastic or chrome, a few dollars, no moving parts. A plumber installs one in minutes, and it is one of the reasons your home is safe to live in. This is the part of the story that hits people strangely. Not the Victorian epidemics, not the engineering debates, but this, the small physical reality that right now in your bathroom, an object you've never consciously looked at is performing one of the most essential functions in domestic life. Modern comfort is not natural. It was not waiting to be discovered. It was built, piece by piece, through crisis, argument, and decades of slowly changing building codes. It exists because people died in ways that forced a response. What worked was the trap, the bend in the pipe, the body of water that sits in your drain and quietly holds the line. Think of the modern home not as a structure with rooms, but as a controlled border. Every drain is a crossing point. Every trap is a checkpoint. Every sealed connection is a moment where the design is either holding or failing. Most of the time, it holds. You don't know it's holding. You don't think about what would happen if it didn't. You use the sink, the water disappears, the room smells like nothing, and you go on with your day. That is the achievement, not the drama of discovery, not the moment of invention, but the invisible, daily, unremarkable functioning of a system that took centuries to build and that quietly protects you from things you will almost certainly never have to think about.